We're tracking this breaking news for you right now. David DePape has been found guilty in a trial centered on the attack of Paul Pelosi.
Jurors have convicted DePape on charges of attempting to kidnap a federal official and assaulting an immediate family member of a federal official. The 43-year-old broke into the Pelosi's home last year with the intention of holding former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hostage. She was not home at the time. DePape then struck her husband, Paul Pelosi, multiple times with a hammer, fracturing his skull and injuring his hands and arms. Jessica Levinson and Scott MacFarlane join us now. Jessica is a CBS News legal contributor and a professor for Loyola Law School, and Scott is a CBS News congressional correspondent. Great to have both of you. Jessica, let's start with you because the jury reached this verdict after only a few hours of deliberations. What did you think about the results that they handed back to the judge?
I think they ultimately just did not buy the defense's argument here that there was a mismatch, between the charges and the motivation. What the defense argued wasn't that the attack didn't occur or that the DePape wasn't the one who actually attacked Paul Pelosi. What they said is, based on the charges, the attempted kidnapping, the assault on an immediate member of a federal official, that the prosecution couldn't prove it because that wasn't his goal. He didn't go there to try and kidnap Nancy Pelosi. He didn't go there to try to assault an immediate member of a federal official. He went there to try and talk to Nancy Pelosi and then, based on the conspiracy theories that he believed, to try and get to individual number one, who was a university professor. Ultimately, based on the quick verdict and based on reporting that we heard from inside the courtroom, I think the jury just did not believe the defense's argument, again, that there was this mismatch between the motivation and the crimes that were charged.
And it's stunning because we're playing footage of police body cam video of, DePape with Paul Pelosi and then attacking him with the hammer in sight, in view of police. I mean, it's really jarring, the evidence here. Scott, talk to us about the significance of this very quick verdict more than a year after the attack and how this may have changed the way members and their families of Congress are protected.
This has been a transcendent crime that has resonated here on Capitol Hill ever since it occurred about a year ago. Not only was this an attack against a member of Congress's spouse, it speaks to a broader issue that the number of political violent threats, the number of threat investigations underway here at the U.S. Capitol has grown by leaps and bounds exponentially in recent years. And there's been this growing sense and growing fear that members of families are prone to be victims or targeted too. And that's exactly what happened here. It was Nancy Pelosi's husband who was savagely beaten. And we're seeing that concern among members of Congress who are announcing their retirements, that they're stepping away from this world, noticing that the number of threats is increasing, the danger is increasing. And what's more, what stands out in this case, unlike the others, is that there was this baseless, crazed conspiracy theory that Paul Pelosi and David DePape knew each other, that there was some relationship before the attack. Donald Trump has continued to allude to that conspiracy theory as recently as this month, continuing to give it life, continuing the perpetuation of baseless claims.
Just quite frightening there. Jessica, why do you think Mr. DePape chose to testify? He did have the right to remain silent, but he put himself there on the stand. He testified, and this verdict was fast. So what impact do you think that had on the trial?
So typically you see defendants testify when things are not going particularly well because they do subject themselves to cross-examination, and that is extremely risky. In this case, I think it was two things. I think one, his attorney and or he may have noticed that things were not going particularly well, that the prosecution was putting on a very tight case. The other is that his entire defense was based on this idea that he truly believed these baseless conspiracy theories. I think Scott did such a good job of explaining why this case is more important than just this case, because it really did speak to the effects, not just politically, but now legally, of all of this misinformation and disinformation that really reverberates throughout our information ecosystem, and that people like DePape potentially really do believe. And so because his legal defense was, really in part that he believed these QAnon conspiracy theories, that he alleged that he wasn't there to kidnap Nancy Pelosi. He wasn't there to assault Paul Pelosi. I think he believed that it was going to be helpful for the jury to hear from him. Now, the fact that he lost, I don't think necessarily means that it was a mistake to put him on the stand, because again, usually you only go on the stand if you think that might be your last best hope.
Well, Scott, I want to go back to something that you were talking about with the overall environment in Congress and the fear for members and their safety and their family's safety, because the man who assaulted Congresswoman Angie Craig was just sentenced to 27 months in prison earlier today. What can you tell us about that case?
Yeah, there are some parallels there. This was not a politically motivated assault. The man, 27-year-old Kendrick Hamlin of D.C., trapped Congresswoman Craig in an elevator, punched her, injured her, tried to go into her apartment in February, and was quickly arrested, pleaded guilty, and today received a sentence of 27 months in prison. But here's the connective tissue. What Congresswoman Craig said in a letter submitted to the court really resonates at this moment. She said the physical injuries have healed, but the trauma of these types of assaults remains, that her kids remain concerned about her well-being. She had to move to a new apartment because she was being doxxed, and she was the subject of death threats after the media attention to the assault speaks to the politically charged moment in which we find ourselves, where public officials are targeted because of their politics. That's what was true in the Paul Pelosi case, and in the time after her assault, it's been true for Angie Craig as well.
Yeah, and I think Paul Pelosi even mentioned the trauma he now suffers from after the attack on him. These aren't singular incidents. They have a long emotional tale. Our thanks to Scott MacFarlane and Jessica Levinson on this breaking story. Thank you very much.